The forgotten woman. The first scream didn't come from her throat. It came from her soul. A soundless, trembling cry that lived behind her eyes as she stumbled barefoot across the cracked pavement. Rain soaking through the thin silk of a once expensive blouse, now clinging to her fragile frame. Her silver hair was tangled, her lips bluish, her hand shaking around a small brown leather bag that she clutched like it was life itself. Cars rushed past, horns blaring, headlights slicing through the storm, and not one of them stopped. The world was too busy to notice the lost old woman wandering through the downpour. She looked out of place, like someone ripped from another time and dropped into a city that had forgotten what compassion was. Her pearl necklace, broken halfway, dangled unevenly across her neck. Her eyes, pale and searching, darted between strangers who quickened their pace to avoid her. They didn't want to be bothered. They didn't want guilt sticking to their clean coats and pressed umbrellas. "Jonathan," she whispered, her voice trembling as if the name itself burned her throat. "Where are you, Jonathan?" No one answered. The bus station was crowded, a blur of neon signs, soggy flyers, and indifferent faces buried in phones. People sat in silence under the shelter, watching the rain, pretending not to see her. When she tripped and fell, her bag burst open, scattering papers into puddles. A photo slid out. A smiling young man in a tuxedo standing beside her in front of a mansion's marble staircase. The ink ran as rainwater washed over it, but she reached for it desperately, whispering, "Don't leave me again." A woman in a red raincoat paused, looked down, then looked away. A man sipping coffee turned his head, muttered something about crazy folks, and kept scrolling through his phone. The old woman struggled to stand, her knees buckling under her. For a moment she stayed there, one hand on the cold ground, the other clutching the soaked photograph. And you could almost feel the years of silence and betrayal crushing her chest. Then a voice cut through the noise. "You okay, ma'am?" It wasn't the voice of a businessman or a police officer, or some good Samaritan from a brochure. It was the voice of a teenager, deep yet gentle, uncertain but brave enough to ask what no one else dared. Marcus Reed stood there, his skateboard tilted beside him, hood dripping rain. 17, tall and wiry, his sneakers soaked through, his expression caught somewhere between concern and disbelief. He'd been heading home from the car wash, earbuds in, when he saw her collapse. For a moment, instinct told him to move on. Keep walking, don't get involved. But something inside him refused to obey. The old woman blinked up at him, her voice cracking. "Please, I can't find him. My son, Jonathan." Marcus knelt down beside her, shielding her with his hoodie as the rain beat harder. "Hey, it's okay. Let's get you out of this rain first, all right?" People stared. Not at her, at him. A black kid kneeling beside a trembling old white woman in a soaked street. Suspicion buzzed like static in the air. Someone whispered, "What's he doing?" Another voice hissed, "Probably trying to rob her." Marcus heard it, but he didn't care. He took her arm gently and helped her to her feet. She was lighter than she looked, bones sharp beneath her skin, shaking uncontrollably. When he tried to pick up her papers, she clutched the bag tight, eyes wild with fear. "Don't let them take it," she whispered. "They took everything else." "Who did?" he asked softly, but she didn't answer. The bus station lights flickered as thunder cracked above. A policeman walked by, glancing at them. "Everything okay here?" he asked, hand resting on his belt. Marcus nodded quickly. "She fell, sir. Just helping her get somewhere dry." The officer hesitated, eyes flicking between them, then shrugged. "All right, just be careful. Some of these old folks are out here on something." As the officer left, Marcus saw the old woman's shoulders slump, the shame in her eyes like a weight pressing her into the earth. He exhaled slowly, trying to steady his voice. "Come on, there's a diner a block away. You can warm up, yeah?" She looked at him as though she couldn't believe anyone would offer such kindness. Her lips trembled, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you helping me?" He hesitated, then said simply, "Because nobody else will." In that instant, something changed, a silent thread tied two lonely hearts together. One beaten by time and betrayal, the other hardened by a world that expected nothing from him but failure. As they walked away through the rain, the old woman's trembling hand slipped into his. Her grip was weak but full of trust. Behind them, the photograph floated down the street, face first into a puddle, as the rain swallowed it whole. She didn't see it, but in her bag, folded deep beneath the wet papers, was a letter marked with a golden seal. A letter that, when opened, would reveal that the trembling, forgotten woman everyone ignored was one of the richest and most powerful figures in the state, and someone wanted her gone for good. The diner smelled of burnt coffee, wet clothes, and fried hope, the kind of place where broken people came to hide from the world. The neon open 24 hours sign buzzed weakly through the rain-streaked window as Marcus guided the trembling old woman inside. She hesitated at the doorway, clutching her leather bag against her chest as if the warm air itself might steal it from her. "Come on, ma'am," Marcus said softly. "It's warm in here. You'll feel better, I promise." A waitress looked up from behind the counter, her tired eyes narrowing. "Marcus, that you again? You bringing strays now?" She teased half-heartedly, but when she noticed the woman's drenched clothes and disoriented eyes, her smile faded. "You want me to call someone? Maybe the police?" Marcus shook his head quickly. No cops. She just needs something hot, please. I'll pay." The waitress sighed, then poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs. Marcus helped the woman into a booth near the window. She shivered uncontrollably, her hands wrapped around the steaming cup but not drinking. Her eyes darted to every corner, studying strangers like they were ghosts. "You got a name, ma'am?" Marcus asked gently for a moment's silence. Then, almost whispering, she said, "Eleanor." "That's a pretty name," Marcus said with a small smile. "I'm Marcus." She looked at him, her expression blank, then whispered as if testing the name. "Marcus, yes, Marcus." She repeated it again like she was trying to remember it. "You remind me of someone I once knew. Someone kind." He smiled faintly, unsure what to say. She spoke with a strange elegance even through her confusion, the kind that didn't belong to someone living on the streets. Her voice was soft but steady, her posture straight even as she trembled. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this woman wasn't what she seemed. He noticed the bag again. Small, brown, old, but well made, its brass latch engraved with initials, E.W. He wondered what she was protecting so fiercely. As she sipped her coffee, the door chimed. 2 police officers entered, shaking off their jackets. The waitress pointed discreetly toward Marcus and Eleanor. "That's them," she whispered. The boy brought her in off the street. Marcus tensed. "Don't worry," he murmured to Eleanor. "They just want to make sure you're safe." But her hand clamped over his wrist suddenly, strength surprising for her age. "No police," she hissed under her breath. "No one can know I'm here. They'll find me. They always find me." "Who?" he whispered. She didn't answer. Instead, her gaze fixed on the window, watching the rain slide down like tears. "They said I'd forget. They said I'd disappear quietly. But I remember, Marcus. I remember everything." Her eyes clouded with something deeper than confusion, a flash of terror and fury that made his heart pound. The older officer approached cautiously. "Ma'am, are you all right? We got a report of an elderly woman in distress." Eleanor stared down at her coffee. Marcus stepped in. "She's fine, sir. Just cold and tired. I was going to walk her home when the rain lets up." The officer's partner eyed Marcus skeptically. "You live around here?" "Yes, sir. 2 blocks down." "My mom's waiting." They exchanged a look. Then the older one shrugged. "All right, kid. Just be careful. A lot of folks take advantage of people like her." When they left, Eleanor exhaled shakily, the tension draining from her body. "They think kindness is suspicion now," she muttered. "How sad." Marcus smiled faintly. "Guess it's not something people see a lot of anymore." A small, trembling laugh escaped her. "Not since Jonathan." There it was again, that name. Marcus leaned in. "Your son?" She nodded slowly, her eyes distant. "He promised to take care of me, said he'd protect the family legacy. But he lied. He took everything, my house, my accounts, my freedom. And then—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "And then he tried to erase me." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Erase you? Like, kill you?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer directly. "I woke up in a clinic far from home. They said I'd wandered off, that I was confused. But I remember the glass of wine that tasted bitter. I remember him smiling as I drank it." Marcus sat frozen, the rain hammering harder against the glass. "Ma'am, that's messed up." She turned to him, her frail hand gripping his sleeve. "Promise me you won't tell anyone about me." "Not yet, I need to find proof." "They think I'm gone. Let's keep it that way." Marcus hesitated. "But if he hurt you, shouldn't the cops—" "No." she snapped, her voice sharp enough to draw glances. Then softer. I can't trust them. He has money, lawyers, friends everywhere. But you looked back when everyone else walked away. That means something. Something stirred in Marcus's chest. Pity, yes, but also admiration. There was fire behind those faded eyes. A woman refusing to be erased. As the storm eased, Marcus paid for the coffee with crumpled bills and helped her to her feet. You can stay with us tonight, he said. It's not much, but it's safe. Eleanor's hand shook as she reached for his, gripping tighter this time. You don't know what you've done, Marcus, she whispered. You just changed everything. Outside, the street shimmered with the reflection of police lights in the distance, but none of them were looking for her yet. Inside her bag, beneath the documents, a small gold-embossed envelope peeked out. It bore the seal of a prestigious law firm and a faint scent of lavender and poison. The night was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the slow dripping of rain from the roof. Marcus's apartment sat above a small corner grocery, the kind of place where the walls were thin and the air smelled faintly of detergent and old dreams. He pushed open the door, guiding Eleanor gently inside. The living room was cramped, a sagging sofa, a flickering lamp, and a heater that rattled like it was on its last breath. But to her it felt like sanctuary. Mom, Marcus called out. You home? From the small kitchen came a voice wrapped in exhaustion. Marcus, is that you? It's past midnight. Then she appeared, wearing a worn bathrobe, her hair tied up, her face lighting up with equal parts love and worry. Who's this? This is Miss Eleanor, Marcus said carefully. She needed a place to stay. It's just for tonight. His mother hesitated, eyes flicking over the drenched old woman. You can't just bring strangers here, baby. I know, but she's not like that, he insisted. She's been through something. Eleanor lowered her head. I'm sorry to trouble you, dear. I won't stay long, just a warm place until morning. Something in her voice softened the woman's suspicion. Marcus's mom sighed, fetched a blanket, and motioned to the couch. All right, then. You can stay the night. Eleanor murmured her thanks and sank onto the sofa. The warmth of the room began to thaw her trembling fingers, but her mind remained cold and sharp. She kept her leather bag close, resting it on her lap like it was a part of her body. As his mother went back to her room, Marcus sat across from Eleanor. You said your son tried to erase you. What did you mean by that? Eleanor's eyes glistened under the lamplight. He was supposed to inherit my foundation after my passing, the Whitmore Charitable Trust. My late husband built it decades ago. We helped hospitals, shelters, schools. It was my life's work. She paused, her hand trembling as she reached for her bag. But when he realized the trust would remain under my control until I died, he made sure I would. Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. You mean? He poisoned me, she said plainly. Not enough to kill, just enough to make me lose myself. They called it dementia. Memory loss, the perfect disguise for murder that never finishes. Marcus stared, disbelief and dread twisting together. That's insane. She gave a bitter smile. Evil often is. She unlatched her bag, fingers fumbling. The brass lock clicked, and she pulled out a thick, water-stained envelope. I've kept this hidden since I escaped. Inside were several folded papers, some official-looking, others handwritten. Marcus leaned forward as she spread them carefully on the coffee table. There was a power of attorney document stamped and notarized, with her signature forged neatly beneath her nephew's name, Jonathan Whitmore. Then a death certificate also bearing her name, Eleanor Grace Whitmore, deceased at age 82. Marcus blinked. Wait, they declared you dead? Yes, she whispered. Legally buried me while my heart still beat. He scanned the next page, a letter embossed with gold from Henderson and Crane law offices. The date was recent, barely a month ago. It read, to Mr. Jonathan Whitmore, we confirm full transfer of assets from the Whitmore Trust to your personal account, as per the provisions established upon the confirmed death of Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore. Marcus looked up. This proves everything. Eleanor's eyes burned. It proves nothing until I stand before them alive. But if he learns I'm here, he'll make sure I never do. The sound of wind rattled the window. Somewhere outside, a car slowed near the alley, its headlights briefly sweeping across the thin curtains before fading. Eleanor flinched, clutching her bag tighter. You okay? Marcus asked. Her eyes darted toward the window. He has people watching, always watching, he frowned. How could they know you're here? I don't know, she whispered, voice trembling. But I've felt it since the diner, when like eyes on me. Marcus stood and locked the door, pulling the curtain shut. You're safe here, ma'am. Nobody knows you're with us. But the unease lingered. Even the shadows in the room seemed heavier, listening. Eleanor reached for one last folded paper. A faded photograph of a boy. My Jonathan, she said softly. When he was 8, sweet, shy, terrified of thunder. I used to hold him when the storms came. He'd say, Mama, I'll never let the dark get you. Her voice broke. Now he is the dark. Marcus didn't know what to say. The thought of a son turning against his mother felt unthinkable. He wanted to tell her everything would be all right, but he saw something in her eyes. Not fear, but resolve. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was waiting for a chance to fight back. A sudden knock shattered the silence. 3 hard raps on the door. Marcus froze. His mother's voice called faintly from her room. Who's that at this hour? Eleanor's face drained of color. Don't open it, she whispered urgently. Marcus crept toward the peephole. A man stood outside in a black coat, his face hidden under the hood, rain dripping from his sleeves. He held something in his hand, a small white envelope. The man slipped it under the door and walked away. Marcus picked it up. The paper was dry, as though it hadn't touched the rain. He unfolded it slowly. Inside, in neat handwriting, were 5 chilling words. We know she's with you. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. And for the first time that night, Marcus realized, and helping this woman wasn't just an act of kindness anymore. It was a step into someone's unfinished war. The morning came gray and heavy, the kind that felt like it was holding its breath. Marcus hadn't slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every passing car outside had kept him on edge. The envelope with its 5 haunting words, we know she's with you, lay folded on the table like a threat waiting to speak again. Eleanor sat on the couch, still wrapped in the same blanket, staring into the distance as though she were watching ghosts parade through memory. Her eyes had lost the panic from the night before. What replaced it was something far colder. Focus. We can't stay here, she said quietly, her voice carrying more strength than it had since he met her. They'll come. They always do. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. Where would we even go? If they know you're alive, isn't running just... I'm not running, she interrupted. I'm going home. He looked at her, startled. Home? You mean the mansion? She nodded. Yes, Whitmore Estate. My house, my prison, my proof. She reached into her bag, pulling out a tarnished key that glimmered faintly in the dim light. They think I'm dead. But there are things in that house only I can unlock. Marcus hesitated. What if it's a trap? Her eyes met his. It is. That answer chilled him, but she didn't flinch. She stood, fragile but determined, every motion a rebellion against the weakness her enemies counted on. If I die, they win. If I walk through my own doors, they burn. An hour later, they boarded a bus heading out of town. Eleanor sat by the window, watching the landscape shift from concrete to quiet countryside. Marcus stayed alert, scanning faces, noticing a man 2 seats back pretending to read a newspaper. Every few minutes, the man's eyes flicked toward them in the reflection of the glass. When Marcus whispered it to her, Eleanor's lips tightened. Don't look at him. He's one of Jonathan's men. I've seen that face before and at the clinic. Marcus's pulse quickened. What do we do? Let him follow, she said. Let him think I'm walking into their arms. Sometimes the only way to end the game is to play it to the last move. The bus wound its way through the outskirts until the city gave way to endless green fields and distant hills. Then there it was in the Whitmore Estate. Even from a mile away, it commanded silence. The gate stood tall, iron vines curling like thorns around the family crest, a lion devouring its own tail. The man with the newspaper didn't get off the bus. He just watched as they stepped into the misty morning, his mouth curling into a knowing smile before the door shut. Eleanor straightened her coat, the wind catching her silver hair like ghost fire. You ready, Marcus? He swallowed hard. Guess we're really doing this. They walked up the long gravel path leading to the mansion. Each step sounded like it was echoing off 100 buried lies. The house loomed larger with every stride, windows shuttered, ivy crawling up its walls like veins. The front door opened before they reached it. Jonathan stood there, smiling as if he'd been expecting company, tall, handsome in a hollow way, dressed in tailored black. Mother, he said smoothly, voice cold and honeyed. You came home, Eleanor froze. I see you haven't changed. Oh, I've changed plenty, he replied. Legally, you don't exist. So technically, this house belongs to me. His gaze shifted to Marcus. And who's this? Another one of your rescuers? You always did collect strays. Marcus stepped closer to Eleanor. I'm here to help her. Jonathan chuckled. Help her do what? Confuse reality again? He turned to Eleanor, tone dripping with false pity. You're ill, Mother. The doctors said you'd start seeing enemies where there aren't any. You should have stayed where you were safe. I was drugged and locked away, she snapped, her voice cracking with fury. You called that safety? His eyes glinted, the mask slipping just enough for Marcus to see the monster beneath. You should have died, Mother. That was the deal. Marcus froze. What deal? Jonathan's smile returned, cruel, elegant, final. The deal that bought me freedom. He stepped aside. Come in. Let's not have family drama on the front lawn. Inside, the mansion smelled of polished wood and betrayal. Portraits of Whitmore ancestors lined the hall. Stern faces watching like silent jurors. Marcus followed Eleanor closely, his phone secretly recording in his pocket. Jonathan poured brandy, offering her a glass. Let's be civilized, shall we? You've had quite the adventure. Eleanor ignored it. Her gaze drifted to the staircase, the same place where months ago she had collapsed after drinking poisoned wine. Her body remembered even if her mind had tried to forget. Where's the staff? She asked. Replaced, Jonathan said simply. Loyalty is expensive. He sipped his drink, studying Marcus. Tell me, kid, did she tell you who she really is? Or did she just play the helpless old woman card? It works every time. She told me enough, Marcus said. Jonathan smirked. Then you should also know you're standing in a house wired with cameras and alarms. One call and no one will ever find you again? The tension thickened like fog. Then, a faint sound. Footsteps upstairs. Eleanor's eyes flicked toward the staircase. Who's here, Jonathan? He smiled. Insurance. Before Marcus could react, two men in black suits appeared from the hallway, moving silently, blocking the exits. Jonathan set down his glass. You shouldn't have come home, Mother. I buried you once. Don't make me do it again. Eleanor's voice was calm but deadly. Then you'd better dig 2 graves. As the words left her mouth, a sudden click echoed from Marcus's pocket. The phone's recording light flashing red. Jonathan's smile vanished. You think anyone will believe you? He hissed. Marcus raised his chin. They won't have to. They'll hear you. Jonathan's eyes darkened, his hand reaching into his jacket. But before he could move, a loud knock thundered through the front doors, a deep, heavy pounding that made all 3 freeze. Jonathan turned sharply. Eleanor whispered, They found us. But Marcus looked at her and whispered back, Or maybe they're here for him. The knock came again, louder this time, and then, from outside, a voice shouted, Police! Open the door. The mansion held its breath. The pounding at the mansion door echoed like a heartbeat through the marble halls. Jonathan's expression shifted instantly, from control to calculation. Don't move, he hissed, motioning to his men. The guards froze, glancing uneasily toward the sound. The voice outside was firm, authoritative, unmistakably real. Police. We have a warrant, open up. Jonathan's mind raced. The last thing he expected was law enforcement, not yet. He turned toward Marcus, who stood by the staircase, phone still glowing red in his trembling hand. What did you do? He demanded. Marcus swallowed hard. I sent your confession. Jonathan's face drained of color. To who? Marcus's lips twitched into a faint smile. To everyone. For a split second, silence reigned. Then Jonathan moved, faster than Marcus thought possible. He lunged forward, striking the boy's arm, sending the phone skidding across the polished floor. Marcus stumbled back as one of the guards grabbed him. The other guard turned toward the door where the police kept pounding. Eleanor rose from her chair with the unshakable grace of a queen reclaiming her throne. Let him go, she said quietly. Jonathan ignored her, his eyes wild. You think you can ruin me with one recording? You don't understand how power works, Mother. Money buries the truth. It buys silence. It about your soul, she cut in sharply. And you sold it cheap. The officers outside began to force the lock. Jonathan motioned to his men. Back exit now. But as they turned, the power suddenly cut out. The mansion plunged into darkness. For a few moments, only the sound of the storm and Eleanor's steady breathing filled the void. Then a flashlight beam cut through the dark. Marcus, holding it steady despite his shaking hands. "You're not getting away this time," he said. Jonathan's voice slithered from the shadows. "You think you're some kind of hero, boy? You don't even know what you're protecting." He stepped closer, his face half lit. The perfect mix of charm and menace. "She's not who you think she is, Marcus. My dear mother has her own skeletons. Ask her what happened to my father." Eleanor's eyes flickered with pain. "Don't you dare." "Oh, I will," Jonathan said softly, stepping nearer. "He didn't die from illness. She killed him. Slow poison, same as she accused me of. The great Eleanor Whitmore, saint of charity, murderer of her husband." Marcus froze, the beam trembling on her face. "Is that true?" Her lips trembled, then steadied. "Yes," she whispered. "But not the way he tells it." She turned toward Marcus, her voice breaking. "He was dying, Marcus, cancer. The pain was unbearable. He begged me every night to help him end it. I couldn't watch him suffer anymore. I gave him what he asked for. The law called it mercy, but Jonathan called it betrayal." Jonathan laughed coldly. "Mercy? You took his life so you could take his fortune. Don't play the victim." "I never wanted his money," she said fiercely. "I wanted my son to remember his father with dignity, not as a broken man begging for release. But you turned that into your weapon. You used it to destroy me." The air vibrated with tension. Marcus stood between them, heart pounding. Both were broken in their own ways, one by guilt, the other by greed. Outside, flashlights flickered through the rain-soaked windows as officers circled the mansion. The pounding at the front door grew louder. Jonathan's men panicked. "We can't stay, boss," one hissed. Jonathan glared. "Hold them off for 30 seconds. Then he turned back to Eleanor, voice dropping to a whisper. "I was going to make it look like an accident this time. An old woman falling down the stairs. It would have been cleaner." "You can still stop," Eleanor said softly. "You can still walk away." He shook his head slowly. "I stopped being your son a long time ago." Before he could raise the gun he'd drawn from his jacket, a blinding light flooded the hall. The police had broken through. "Drop your weapon," someone shouted. Jonathan froze, gun wavering. The two guards raised their hands instantly, backing away. But Jonathan didn't drop it. Instead, he looked at Marcus, eyes blazing. "You think you've saved her? You've just made her a public scandal. Everything she's done, everything she's hidden. It'll all come out now. You didn't rescue a saint, kid. You resurrected a ghost." Marcus's voice shook but stayed firm. "Then let the world hear the truth. All of it." The officers advanced cautiously, weapons drawn. Jonathan's hand trembled, the barrel lowering an inch and then rising again. For a terrifying second, Marcus thought he'd fire. Eleanor stepped forward. "Jonathan," she said quietly, her voice cracking but strong. "Look at me." He hesitated. "You were my greatest gift," she whispered, "and my greatest punishment. If you kill me now, you'll finish the job you started, killing everything good that ever lived in you." For a flicker of a moment, the storm outside seemed to pause. Jonathan's hand shook violently. Then he screamed, a sound of rage, grief, and defeat, and threw the gun across the floor. Officers surged forward, pinning him down. Marcus rushed to Eleanor's side, steadying her as her legs buckled. She watched as her son was dragged away, rain pouring through the open door. Her face was pale but calm, like someone who had finally finished running. As Jonathan was shoved into the police car, he looked back through the rain-spattered window, eyes burning with something between hatred and heartbreak. "You think this is over?" he shouted. "You can't erase blood, Mother." The doors slammed. The sirens faded into the distance. Eleanor stood silently in the doorway of her mansion, her home, her battlefield. The storm had broken, but inside her something else was still roaring. Grief, guilt, and strange relief. Marcus placed his hand on her shoulder gently. "You did it," he said. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Marcus. We did." But as lightning flashed across the estate, both of them noticed something the police hadn't. A single security camera light still blinking red in the corner of the room, quietly recording everything that had just happened. And someone, somewhere, was still watching. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and raw. The Whitmore mansion stood quiet at dawn, its windows glistening like tired eyes that had finally cried enough. Inside, the chaos of the night had been reduced to silence. Overturned furniture, muddy footprints, and the faint hum of police radios fading away. Marcus sat on the bottom step of the grand staircase, exhausted, head in his hands. Across from him, Eleanor watched the sunrise through the tall glass doors, her frail figure outlined in gold light. Jonathan had been taken away hours ago, but his final words, "You can't erase blood," still echoed in her chest. She felt hollow but also free. For the first time in months, no one was controlling her medication, her memory, her name. She was Eleanor Whitmore again, but the title felt heavier than before. "Ma'am," Marcus said softly, "the police want you to rest. They said you might need to give a statement later." Eleanor smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "I've been giving statements my whole life, Marcus. Tonight I think I'll let the truth speak for itself." He nodded, unsure what that meant, but stayed beside her. In the silence, something deeper passed between them. Not words, but an understanding that what they had shared went beyond chance. It was destiny written in the quiet courage of kindness. Hours later, a car arrived from the city, black, official, and far too polished for the dirt road that led to the estate. A woman stepped out, dressed in gray, her expression neutral but eyes sharp. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she asked. "Yes," Eleanor said, rising slowly. "I'm Amelia Crane from Henderson and Crane, your family's law firm. I came as soon as I heard the reports. I wanted to express our relief that you're alive." "Relief," Eleanor repeated dryly. "An interesting choice of word, considering your firm helped my nephew transfer my entire fortune under false pretenses." Amelia's face didn't flinch. "We followed documentation that appeared authentic. If there was deception, we'll cooperate fully." Eleanor studied her, then smiled, a tired, knowing smile. "Don't worry. I won't destroy you. You were just another player in his game. But I think it's time someone else writes the rules." Amelia glanced at Marcus, who stood protectively beside her. "And who's this?" Eleanor looked at him with pride. "The reason I'm still alive." Over the following weeks, headlines spread across the state. "Elderly philanthropist found alive. Nephew arrested in estate. Fraud." The boy who saved Eleanor Whitmore. From betrayal to justice inside the Whitmore scandal. Marcus became a quiet symbol of integrity, a kid from the wrong side of the tracks who proved that compassion still existed in a world addicted to apathy. His mother, once struggling to pay rent, now found herself working as Eleanor's housekeeper, though Eleanor preferred the word family. But even amid the relief, something haunted Eleanor. One evening, she sat alone in her study, sorting through her recovered papers. Her hand brushed against a small velvet pouch she didn't recognize. Inside was a flash drive, the security feed from the mansion. Her heart pounded as she plugged it into the computer. The footage showed everything from that night. Jonathan's confession, the confrontation, the police storming in. But then, after they left, a final frame appeared. Someone else stepping through the back door once the chaos had ended. A man in a gray coat and gloves. The same face she'd seen years ago at her husband's accidental death. He placed an envelope on her desk, glanced toward the camera, and smiled. The footage cut to black. Eleanor froze. Slowly, she opened the real envelope sitting on the desk now. The same one she'd found there after returning home. Inside was a single note. "Jonathan was only the beginning. The foundation runs deeper. Keep digging if you dare." Her hand trembled. The revelation wasn't fear, it was fury reborn. The betrayal had roots that went far beyond her family. Someone had manipulated her estate, her son, even her husband's death. And it had all been hidden beneath the Whitmore Trust's empire of charity. But she didn't call the police. She closed the laptop, leaned back in her chair and whispered, "Not yet." That night she asked Marcus to join her by the fireplace. The flames painted their faces in amber light. "There are things I can't fix," she began, "mistakes that go back decades. But what you did for me, Marcus, that kindness, it reminded me that humanity still breathes even in the ashes." He shifted awkwardly. "I just did what anyone should have done." She smiled softly. "No, dear, you did what almost no one does." Then she handed him an envelope. Inside were college acceptance forms, tuition fully paid, and a letter naming him co-trustee of the newly revived Whitmore Foundation. He stared, speechless. "You can't be serious." I've never been more serious, she said. I spent a lifetime giving to the world and it gave me lies in return. You gave me truth. So now you'll give others what I couldn't, a chance. He blinked hard, emotion thick in his throat. Why me? Because you took my hand when everyone else looked away, she said. And that moment saved both our lives. Years later, when Eleanor passed peacefully in her sleep, the entire town gathered for her funeral. Reporters came, cameras flashed, but Marcus stood apart and a man grown calm and strong. Holding a single white lily, as he placed it on her grave, he whispered, You saved me first. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying her name across the quiet hills. Behind him, the newly built Whitmore Center for Second Chances gleamed in the morning sun, its first scholarship awarded in her memory. And somewhere far away, a man in a gray coat watched the broadcast on a hotel television, smiling faintly. He poured himself a glass of wine and whispered, Well done, Eleanor. You finally learned how deep kindness cuts. But in the end, kindness had already won, because it didn't matter who watched or schemed in the shadows. Her legacy now lived in every act of compassion that followed. And for Marcus, that one small moment, stopping for a lost old woman, became the spark that lit a lifetime of light in a world that had long forgotten how to care.